Thank you for logging onto RameshLawrenceMiraj.com. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. You can click on the links on this page for getting more information. Thank you. This campaign for the internal elections of the party to choose an executive and a political leader of the party is for the membership of the party to have more power for themselves so that the membership would be empowered, more empowered, in order to know what is happening in the party, to be part and parcel of the decision-making process of the party, and to make the party stronger for it to win the government of Trinidad and Tobago. This election of the party is probably the most important election, having regard to the fact that it is happening at a time when the country is about to have a general election and you may have a new constitution for Trinidad and Tobago. These elections would therefore determine whether some of the problems which the people have every day, that is, no drinking water, no good roads, bad drainage, flooding, would continue as part of their lives, or that these problems would be solved by a new government with a new policy which would put the people first instead of putting flagpole before people. These elections are important because the country can have a new policy with a new government in which people would come before summit, and building the lives of the people would come before building big buildings. The internal elections of the party are also important because the party needs reform. The party needs to have new dimensions. For example, one of the things in the party can be the right of the membership to recall its leaders, to recall its members who are elected if the membership believes that that should be in the interest of the party. I have offered myself as a candidate to be the leader of this party because I believe that, having regard to the work I have done and the needs of the people can use, the members can use my services in order to greater empower them. I have been in this party since 1991. I have served as opposition chief whip. I have worked with the party leadership and the party members in order for the party to have the greatest number of seats a single opposition has ever had in the 1991 elections. Since we got into opposition in 1991 and I was the chief whip and I worked with the membership and with the leadership, we were able to get into government in 1995. We were able to make a big difference in Trinidad and Tobago. We changed Trinidad and Tobago to some extent. We won the elections in 2000. And you will recall in 1995, the people of Trinidad and Tobago was facing a serious crime problem. We were able to solve the crime problem to some extent. As Attorney General, I was very involved in leading the fight against crime, and I think I can safely say the criminals knew that if they committed crimes, they would be detected. And if they were detected, they would be prosecuted. And if they were prosecuted, they would be convicted. And when convicted, they would pay the penalty for committing the crime. At that time in Trinidad and Tobago, with that government, and I as Attorney General, the criminals knew that if they committed crimes, the government would deal with them. We are living in times in which the government is afraid of the criminals. Prime Minister Manning invites the organized criminals, crime and criminal gangs, to meet him in a hotel under the name of community leaders, and the government is afraid to deal with the criminals. These elections, therefore, are to give the party and the country the opportunity of choosing a government which would be able to make people safer and more secure in Trinidad and Tobago. In government, I was able, when I was re-elected as a member, elected as a member for Tabaquite in the 2007 elections, I was able to confront Mr. Manning in the Parliament with the Udicot allegations of corruption. Based on what I said in the Parliament, I produced the facts to show that persons who were related to Mr. Colahad were involved in getting contracts and that there was a conflict of interest. And based on what I said, the Prime Minister was forced to appoint a commission of inquiry. As Attorney General of Trinidad and Tobago, I was able to pass laws which give greater rights to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. For example, the Freedom of Information Act gave to people the right to have official information. It gave to them a statutory right to have official information. The Equal Opportunity Act provided a machinery for the investigations of allegations of inequality and for them to get redress without having to pay lawyers. Persons are able to have a legal machinery to enforce the right to equality of treatment. I was also involved in passing the Judicial Review Act, which for the first time in the Caribbean gave to an organization the right to file a public interest litigation on behalf of persons who are suffering, but who for themselves either cannot afford to go to court or do not want to go to court. That is the kind of legislation which great lawyers in Trinidad now, like Anand Ram Logan, has been using in order to fight for the rights of people. That is the legislation I used recently to file a claim on behalf of the former sugar workers in order to compel Mr. Manning and the cabinet to give them the lands which were promised to them as part of their visa package. That is the legislation that I used in order to be able to get the High Court to declare the building of the aluminum smelter plant at Le Bray is unlawful. These, apart from that kind of legislation, I passed legislation which gave to the government and gave to the police greater power to fight crime and to fight money laundering. I was able to reform the law with respect to every aspect in Trinidad and Tobago. The landscape of Trinidad and Tobago with respect to law was completely transformed. Even when I was no longer in government and I was at the ground level of the society from 2002 to 2007, I was engaged in fighting for the rights of the people. I staged a march from Cedros to Port of Spain to prevent Mr. Manning, to put pressure upon Mr. Manning from building an aluminum smelter plant at Chatham in Le Bray. After we marched, he announced that he was not going to build the aluminum smelter plant at Chatham. He then decided to build it in Le Bray, and there's where I went to court in order to stop it. I was involved in a march recently as an MP from Tabaquite to Port of Spain in order to be able to highlight the bad roads, the bad drainage, and the problems of no proper water supply for the people of Tabaquite and the country as a whole.